This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Good morning, Kentucky. Welcome to Kentucky's Voice, your homegrown Christian conservative talk radio show covering important issues affecting our local community, our state, and our nation. It's Tuesday, June 3rd, I should say, and this is Bob Scott coming to you live and unafraid with the truth you won't hear from the liberal mainstream media. If you want to join in the discussion today, you can text us at 502-571-0970. Again, that phone number is 502-571-0970. Buckle up, folks. This is going to be a powerful hour of faith, facts, and freedom. Our guest is no stranger to this program and conservative values in our state. He recently hosted for me while I was on vacation in Florida, and by all accounts, the feedback I got has been absolutely fantastic. Friends, if there is one thing we know for sure, it is that leadership does matter, especially at the local level. Today, we're joined by someone who is equipping the next generation of leaders to stand for life, liberty, and biblical values. Richard Nielsen, founder and executive director of the Commonwealth Policy Center in Frankfort. Welcome back, Richard.
Bob, it's great to be on the program with you.
Well, Richard, it's always an honor to have you on, and we did get some late breaking news just before, I guess it came out yesterday, but I'm going to let you share that with our audience. We talked about it briefly before we did go on the air, but this doesn't happen that often. The ACLU has dropped their lawsuit involving what they called Baby Poe, but essentially their lawsuit against Kentucky. Can you share with our viewers and listeners about that?
Yeah, the ACLU filed a lawsuit some time ago to overturn Kentucky's trigger law. And that was the law that went into effect. It was actually passed in 2019. But the premise of it is that if the U.S. Supreme Court ever overturns the Roe v. Wade ruling, the issue would come back to the states. And that means that any state, including Kentucky, that had a trigger law on the books, abortion will be banned. And that's what happened in Kentucky. So in June of 2022, Roe v. Wade was overturned with the Dobbs decision. Our trigger law went into effect, and all abortions were outlawed except to save the life of the mother. Well, it was sometime after that the ACLU filed suit. They found a plaintiff, Bob, who a woman who's pregnant that wanted an abortion. She could not get one in Kentucky. Why? Because all of the abortion centers were closed down. And she filed a lawsuit, and the ACLU ended up dropping their lawsuit. And here's why I think that happened. First of all, Russell Coleman, our Attorney General, was committed to defending Kentucky's pro-life laws. He's got a sharp legal mind, great arguments, and he stood against it. He was named the defendant, by the way. The name of that case was Poe v. Coleman, that being Russell Coleman, the Attorney General. And he was not going to just sit by. He had marshaled a good defense and a good legal team. So that's one reason. Here's the other one. The state legislature passed a law that clarifies some of the gray area that the ACLU and Planned Parenthood, well, what they said was gray area. They said, look, doctors are afraid to even help women who might be hemorrhaging, women who have an ectopic pregnancy or a molar pregnancy. There was a list of, I think, 8 different conditions that women could have, complicated pregnancies that could threaten their lives. Now, the statute says that a woman's life who's in jeopardy, that the abortion could take place. But anyways, the state legislature clarified each of these different, it's like 8 different conditions that could happen. They said that is not an abortion. They also clarified what an abortion is. And Bob, it was fascinating because the ACLU and Planned Parenthood fought tooth and nail against that law. And even though they were the ones that precipitated it, they were arguing, well, it's unclear. There's gray area. Doctors are afraid to help women. Baloney. We took away their talking points to challenge our state law, and I believe that has a lot to do with why the ACLU dropped its abortion, the lawsuit to overturn abortion. That's good news, Bob.
Yeah, and Richard, it's because of organizations like the Commonwealth Policy Center and many others
Mhm.
that also have joined in the fight. The fight to protect the unborn in our state. And again, we do applaud Russell Coleman for his courageous actions that he took to stand up against a very powerful opponent and actually bring a breath of life, to the situation and the battle, if you will, for righteousness and truth, within our Commonwealth.
Yeah. Bob, this underscores the importance of state leadership. It also underscores the importance of local elections. We get fired up over national issues. We get fired up over who's in the White House, and we should be concerned about those things. But you know that we can take our time and energy and devote them to local issues, local candidates, state House and state Senate races. And this is what CPC did. When we started 13 years ago, our goal was to raise up and train and help elect principled conservative leaders, those who were committed to preserving the sanctity of life, those who were committed to religious freedom and conscience rights, man woman marriage. These are the kind of principles that we thought were important to a healthy Commonwealth. And these are the kind of candidates that believed in these issues that we wanted to help get into office. And it's important to note that the Kentucky legislature had a majority to actually enact the trigger law back in 2019, largely because of the work that my organization has done, Commonwealth Policy Center, recruiting, training, and help electing pro-life, pro-family leaders. It was in 2016 when the House flipped. We all rejoiced over that. But it was in 2017, 2018, 2019 when we saw a number of pro life bills that were enacted and became law. And it was because of that leadership change that we had in our state legislature. And we were glad to and really blessed to be part of helping to change the makeup of our state legislature. And that's what we continue to do today, Bob.
Yeah, and Richard, it really is impressive what you did because now not only did you help with that flip to more conservative legislators being elected, but it's now a supermajority, that keeps building upon itself, and we're even seeing some Democrats that have switched parties and come over to the, in my opinion, the right side. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but it is encouraging to know. That we're seeing principled conservative leadership now happening. And I know that you have another training session coming up. I've had the opportunity to be to one of them and see it in action. And it really is and does start at the grassroots level.
Yeah, it does, Bob. And this is something, again, that we forget that we have potential to really make change. And I want to encourage all the listeners, just stop and think about this for a moment. We spend a lot of time consuming national news. We pay attention to the daily news that's coming out of Washington, D.C., a lot of the frustration, a lot of the foolishness that happens in Congress. Now, that might get your blood pressure up, but it's not going to change things. Look, Kentucky has eight electoral votes. We got six members in the House. We got two U.S. senators out of 535. Look at what we can do right here in the Commonwealth, where we all have there's 100 state legislators in the House. There are 38 legislators in the Senate. Each of the House members represents about 45,000 people or so in Kentucky. In the Senate, the number's twice, a little more than twice that. You can actually know who your state House and Senate members are. They will pick up a phone call if you call them, or they will make an appointment with you for you to stop by your office. You have access to them, unlike you do a congressman. And even if you do have access to a congressman, that's just a drop in the bucket as far as the votes are concerned. So, what I'm saying, Bob, is that our energy and our influence goes a lot longer way here at the state level. And part of our work at the Commonwealth Policy Center is to help people to focus on state level issues, state level races, to engage in those races. And I think this is a good segue to talk about, if we could, about our candidate training, if
Yes,
that's
please.
okay.
Yes, absolutely.
But this is why we hold candidate training events where we show candidates and teach them how to run effective campaigns. We're going to be doing one in Louisville, likely in October. We don't have the details yet, but it's likely going to be in October, and it's going to focus on local races. How do you run for school board? How do you run for the city commission or state legislature, whatever the position might be? Mike Harmon, who's the former state auditor, he's on our team. He and I are going to be doing the training. We may pull in a state representative or a state senator from the area to help with the training as well. So here's what I want to say. For those of you that are concerned about the direction of the Commonwealth, if you want to contribute and use your time and energy in a positive way, consider coming to our candidate training. If you've ever thought about running for office or even helping on a campaign, go to our website, commonwealthpolicycenter.org. It's just the name of our group, commonwealthpolicycenter.org, and sign up to get our email updates. That is the best way to stay abreast of our the details for our upcoming candidate training. By the way, the filing deadline for this training is in January of 2026, January 4th. Think about this. This is only, we're talking about 6 months away.
Yeah, be
It's
on top of us.
not far off at all. So if you've ever thought about running for office, helping on a campaign, learning more about what's involved with a campaign, go to Commonwealth Policy Center's website, commonwealthpolicycenter.org, and sign up to get the CPC newsletter. And we should have more information in the next e-newsletter that we send out.
Yeah, Richard, we are so thankful for the work that you're doing. We'll be right back here on Kentucky's Voice after this brief message.
Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm Bob Scott, and I got to tell you, folks, a seismic shift has happened recently in Frankfort, our state, and really it's reverberating through our entire nation. State Senator Robin Webb, I talked about it at length on yesterday's program, played a clip from Fox News. In fact, she's a longtime Democrat. She announced she's joining the Republican Party. I have a short news clip talking about this. Jay, please play clip one.
Eastern Kentucky State Senator has switched her party affiliation. Today it was announced Senator Robin Webb is joining the Republican Party. Senator Webb is an attorney and longtime legislator, first elected to the House in 1998 and then the Senate in 2008. That Senate district includes Boyd, Carter, Greenup, and Lewis counties. Senator Webb was the last Eastern Kentucky Democrat in the state Senate. Senator Webb provided this statement saying, quote, "First and foremost, I'm a mother, rancher, and a lawyer with deep personal and professional roots in Kentucky's coal country. As the Democratic Party continues its lurch to the left and its hyper-focus on policies that hurt workforce and economic development in my region, I no longer feel it represents my values. It has become untenable and counterproductive to the best interests of my constituents for me to remain a Democrat."
In a key takeaway from that clip, untenable and counterproductive to the, in her opinion, and one that I happen to agree with, to the running of our state government. And, the question is, what does this mean for Kentucky's political landscape and the conservative movement in general? And I, fortunately, am blessed to have my good friend Richard Nilsson from CPC here today as we try to unpack this huge change that's happened. And it just, in fact, Richard, what's your initial reaction to Senator Webb's decision to switch parties?
Bob, just when you think the Democratic caucus in Frankfurt can't get any smaller, you have an announcement like this from Senator Robin Webb, who's been a legislator for, I want to say, close to 3 decades, something like that. She served in the House and in the Senate. She's the last state senator in the Democratic Party from rural Kentucky. Now, there are no Democrats in rural Kentucky in the state Senate. There's only one in the state house, a rural Democrat, Ashley Lafferty Tackett, over in Prestonsburg. But here you have Robin Webb, who said that, look, it's the party. I didn't leave the party left me.
Yeah.
And she talked about the lurch to the left and its hyper focus on policies that hurt workforce and economic development. The party is leaving her. Often it's of course, they've become the party of anti-coal. Well, that's a big constituency, an important natural resource in her district. But also the party has embraced ideology that is offensive to most Kentuckians and most of Middle America. This idea of transgender ideology, and that young people can transition, or that biological boys should play on sports teams. These are the kind of things that the Democratic Party today is known for. And so long as state Democrats push that kind of thing, align with that kind of thing at the national level, you're going to continue to see Democrats leave the party, become Republican. I wouldn't be surprised, Bob, if we saw another Democrat in far eastern Kentucky, Prestonsburg. I just mentioned her, Representative Tackett, who's very conservative, very similar to Robin Webb. She may leave. So what would that mean to the Democratic Party if it's exclusively an urban party, which we've got Lexington and Louisville, where and then some of the suburbs in northern Kentucky that are Democratic, but really the party that used to represent rural values, party that would represent family values. Democrats used to be known for these things.
Yep, that's right.
But they're no longer. That's no longer the case. So I would suggest that the head of the Democratic Party, Coleman Eldridge, really have some serious conversations with those Democrats who are leaving, including Robin Webb. What are those deal breakers for them? What are the things that the Democratic Party could be doing to bring them back in? I would suggest, by the way, is that once they embraced radical abortion policy, once they embraced the idea of things like same-sex marriage and gender ideology, they immediately began to offend that rural base, those conservatives who were pro-family, blue-collar, hardworking people, family values. These are the things that are incompatible. You cannot embrace far left ideology and at the same time embrace blue-collar, hardworking family values.
It's interesting, Richard. You look at this switch, and it used to be the Democratic Party always had the urban communities all sewed up. but we're even seeing some chinks and cracks with regard to Republicans being elected into traditionally. Blue areas, if you will. There's several that are serving in both the House and the Senate.
Mhm.
I think of John Hodgson over here in our area. I think of Lindsey Tishner.
Yeah.
The cracks are happening, they've pretty much, the Democrats have managed to destroy what little impact they had with regard to the suburban folks or the rural folks in our state. And now the question is, where does the Democratic Party go from here? Do you think they're capable of making a switch to come back to more like the JFK type of Democratic Party that they once were?
It's going to take some people of courage and patience to work within the party to do that. However, we have a governor, the standard bearer of the party right now in Kentucky's Andy Beshear, and he's doubling down on far left policies, Bob. He had a rally that he spoke at in the state capitol on
Yeah,
Sunday.
talk about that. That's yes.
It was to kick off Gay Pride Month, which June is so-called Pride Month. This is what he said. In part, he said, "This is Andy Beshear, our state governor. Kentucky and the rest of the United States cannot possibly reach its full potential unless our people feel supported to be themselves. Discrimination against our LGBTQ plus community is unacceptable. It holds us back, and in my Kentucky accent, it ain't right." Andy Beshear has doubled down. By the way, those are nice terms. Discrimination, we kind of bristle at that. We don't want discrimination. Look, to say that young people can transition to the opposite sex, which is what Andy Beshear has said, or that boys should play on biological boys should play on girls' sports teams, which is what he has said, that ain't going to move the party forward. That's not helpful. We need to have the courage as adults to say, hey, young people, God made you male or he made you female. Embrace that. If you're struggling with your gender identity, let's walk you through it. Let's get you help. But certainly don't tell a young child you can transition to the opposite sex. And that, so long as the Democrats have leaders like that, including Andy Beshear, pushing for policies like that, I'm going to say that the Democratic Party, rest in peace, at least for rural America. You might get agreement in New York City or Los Angeles, but not in rural Kentucky.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's well known that Governor Beshear is absolutely targeting to make a presidential run here in a few years. He's being courted. Has been out to Davos and met with some of the far left folks there. And I know he's got the financial backing, but let me tell you, I think America spoke very clearly through the last general election that they're not looking for that anymore. They want balance and fairness and more of a conservative thought process, to be intertwined in our governance.
That's right. I agree, Bob. I would say they're looking for principled leadership. They want leaders who are grounded in principle that align with American values, right? That there's a God who endows us with freedom, with rights and liberties, that government has constraints, and that certainly government should not be promoting to our young people ideas that are harmful and things that lead to their demise instead of flourishing.
We'll be right back with Richard Nilsson after this break. Stay tuned.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
You're turned into Kentucky's Voice. So glad that you've been able to join us today. I'm Bob Scott. Jefferson County may be in for a huge political showdown as State Senator David Yates is eyeing a run against longtime Republican County Clerk Bobby Holslaw. In fact, I believe they have served for almost 3 decades. With us today is Richard Nilsson of the Commonwealth Policy Center to help us understand what's at stake in that race.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bob. We just talked about the state senator from Grayson County, Robin Webb, switching from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Now you hear of the leader of the minority Democrats, David Yates, who's going to leave the state Senate. As it is, there are only 6 state senators in Kentucky who are Democrats. That's 6 out of 38. So it's 32 Republicans. There's 6 Democrats. It could go down to 5 if Republicans pick up that seat next election. This is telling of how maybe ineffective that David Yates and his party are in the legislature. So you're seeing people, even in leadership places in the Democratic Party, they're leaving. Now, he is running for a county clerk seat, Bob. And, county clerk, they're important. They deal with the administrative work, county level, deeds, and used to deal with driver's license, that kind of thing. But it's not really a political position. These are administrators. They are doing some of the nuts and bolts work that people need to have done in their community, registrations and licensing and taxes and deeds, that kind of stuff. So I think that this is more of an indication. I don't see David, if he wins that seat, and I don't really know how popular Holtzclaw is. Obviously, she's served for, I guess you mentioned 3 decades, a long time, very popular, but I don't know politically how important this is. I would suggest looking at other races in Kentucky and seeing whether or not Democrats are competitive there. For example, the U.S. Senate seat that opens up next year, Mitch McConnell's retiring. Look at the kind of Democrats that are emerging to run for that. Right now, there's one, Pam Stevenson, a state House member out of Louisville. She ran for Attorney General last year and really didn't do well. She lost, of course. Russell Coleman won. I don't see her as a particularly strong candidate, but we'll see what other top tier candidates Democrats can field. And right now, they've got a very shallow bench. There aren't very many that can emerge and run competitively for that seat. Bob, look at this. How about for governor? What candidates for governor next election cycle? 2027 is still a couple years off. But what Democrats are going to step up to run for that? There really aren't a whole lot that are in a position to run a strong race. So right now, Republicans have the momentum. They have a deep bench. You're going to see a number of Republicans running for the U.S. Senate seat next year. There's already 3 candidates that have emerged. Probably see several more. For the governor's race, we're going to probably see several more candidates on the Republican side run for governor. I'm not seeing really strong Democratic candidates that can run a competitive and a close race. So this is more of an indication of the Democratic Party, its weaknesses, lack of having a bench, and really where they stand on the issues. The Democratic Party has embraced, and really it starts at the federal level. That's where many of the policy decisions and positions are crafted. That's where they create their platform. They've embraced the wrong policies that are not good for families, policies that are not good for our young people, policies that are contrary to reality, if you will, policies that hurt Kentucky's economic base. When you think of coal, things like that, it's not been helpful. And until those policy changes take place, and until Democrats really try to figure out what's happening in rural America and how they can connect with them, they're going to continue to lose seats. That's my prediction. I don't have a crystal ball, Bob, but that's my prediction for what will happen, at least in Kentucky races over the next couple of years.
With Mitch McConnell's impending retirement, Richard, who do you see stepping in? Because we know, whether you like him or not, he has been a very powerful influence and voice
Mhm.
in Kentucky politics for a long, long time. And who do you see or anticipating to step in and take that leadership mantle, or do you view that as being something more of a couple folks, stepping to the plate and doing that?
Yeah, there are three strong candidates, two that have announced they're running, and one that is looking at it. And they're all strong, I think. Daniel Cameron, former Attorney General, he was the first to announce to run for that seat. Then you have Congressman Andy Barr. He represents the 6th District. He's in Lexington. He's a very strong candidate. And then you have a businessman in Lexington, Nate Morris, who's run a very, very successful business called Rubicon. And he comes as an outsider, a business-minded person who wants to shake things up in Washington, D.C. I think, Bob, we're going to have, there's another candidate, I forget his name, but another candidate, a veteran who's frustrated with some of the things going on in the federal government as well. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to see several more candidates run for the U.S. Senate. But I think right now the two strongest are Daniel Cameron and Congressman Andy Barr.
A name that I've been hearing, and a name through Run Switch, that's been getting bannered about. He's also a CNN commentator. Is Scott Jennings. That there is some talk, that he may be another one that may throw his hat into the ring. What are your thoughts about that?
He's certainly gotten a lot of attention. I think he's kind of teased that out. The Courier Journal had a story headlined "Is Scott Jennings running for the Senate?" I would be surprised. I've learned to never say never in politics. I think if Donald Trump asked him to run, maybe he would. I think Scott has said that. But Scott is very, very close to Daniel Cameron. I believe he's close to Andy Barr as well. And these are decisions that if you have friends, so Scott Jennings was very involved with Daniel Cameron's governor's race. They're personal friends. I've got a hard time believing that he would just jump in uh, and having Daniel Cameron stay in as well. But who knows? Strange things happen in politics. I think that there's this allure of having a position and a title and being one of the major players to make decisions. Whoever it is, I'll say this, Bob. We need a fighter in the U.S. Senate that believes in the United States, that believes in the Constitution, that believes in upholding the keeping government in its right lane, but somebody who has fiscal integrity, somebody who will work for a balanced budget, somebody who will rein in this unimaginable spending on ridiculous things, as we learned earlier this year, some of the foreign assistance going to support crazy things that make no sense whatsoever. And we need somebody who will fight for those things and restore some fiscal sanity to the federal government, whoever it is. And we'll see if a candidate can make the case that they will go to Washington, D.C. to do that and to bring some order and some fiscal responsibility and to keep the federal government in its lane. I think that candidate that can tap into those things could emerge from a Republican primary to be the U.S. Senate nominee, at least on the Republican side, next year.
And I think a big part of this too, Richard, and I know you'd agree with this. It's really crucial, and this is kind of circling back to how we began the program. Talking about the importance of getting involved, you the individual,
Yeah.
and staying in touch and informed with regard to the different types of folks that are running, and including again maybe considering running for some kind of public office. I know one situation over in Shelby County where I live, that a particular person, I'm not going to mention their name right now, but they decided that they were kind of fed up with some things that were going on at the school board, and they decided to run, and they won.
Yeah.
And those types of things I find very refreshing. You know, we need to see more and more people willing to do that. In fact, we did get a text in, I guess going back to our original discussion, does candidate training teach how to obtain funding and the rules that apply? And we know, and especially in politics, money makes the world go round.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't win an election if you can't raise money. And we do talk about fundraising. We do talk about campaign finance law too. What a great person to have leading our training, like the former state auditor, Mike Harmon. He knows something about fundraising. He knows something about records as well. And we do talk about those aspects. And we do talk about dollar amounts that you might need for the different offices, how to raise money, how to put together a budget. We do discuss those things. And look, if anybody is tuned in and interested in running for office, whether it's school board or your metro council if you're in Louisville, or a state house race, feel free to please go to the CPC website. Go to Commonwealth Policy Center. It's just the name of our group, Commonwealth Policy Center.org, and sign up to get our e-newsletter. That is the best way to stay informed about details of our upcoming candidate training events. And we are going to have one in Louisville, likely in the month of October. But sign up to get that e-newsletter. Go to our website, CommonwealthPolicyCenter.org, and you will be getting more information in the near future about that training.
Yeah, and that's huge that you're bringing it to Louisville. It's very refreshing to see, Richard. I know you traditionally have held those in Frankfurt,
Yeah.
but it's good to see that you're bringing it to the heart of one of the more left-leaning parts of our state, to encourage folks to run and get involved. And you know, the bottom line is local elections, as we have seen,
Yeah.
and as we know, they matter. You
Yeah.
know, often more than we realize, and that's why it's absolutely critical for folks to get tuned in. And we have another segment coming up. We're going to be talking about Fidelity Month and the Identity Project by the Colson Center. It's going to be a great segment. You definitely want to stay tuned for. Richard, again, it's just an honor to have you on. And again, it comes about, we're talking about faith, fidelity, and family. And again, it's something that we are going to look at much more closely in the next upcoming segment. You are tuned in today to Kentucky's Voice, your local source for conservatism here in Louisville and the state of Kentucky. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to the final segment of Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Bob Scott. June isn't just another month. It's Fidelity Month. I'll say that. It's unfortunately the left I felt, hijacked it as they do a lot of things, whether it be the rainbow, it's known in some circles as the LGBTQ month of pride, if you will. But I like the fact that it's coming out now as Fidelity Month, a time to refocus on faithfulness to God, family, and country. And the Colson Center is leading the way with their identity project. And we're talking with Richard Nelson today from the Commonwealth Policy Center about why this effort matters now more than ever.
Bob, when we're tempted to be discouraged by some of the developments, you see some of the crazy movements and bad policies and leaders in office that we think aren't doing the right thing. I want to encourage those who are watching and tuned in right now with some good news. Every movement has a beginning. Every idea, good or bad, has a beginning. And there are people, it starts with one person, then a group of people, and then it moves on. Well, I'm encouraged to say that we're seeing some huge developments in a positive way. So the first one is Fidelity Month. Fidelity Month started 2 years ago with Princeton law professor Robert George. He's an author, speaker, Christian, brilliant mind. And he looked at
Wait a minute, Richard, you said Princeton?
Yeah.
Princeton.
Yes, Princeton.
Ivy League Princeton
Yeah.
law professor.
Yeah.
That decided to do this. Please continue.
Yeah, no, isn't that great? And so that, by the way, there are some conservatives in Ivy League places, but Robert George has been a beacon of light in higher education. And he came across a study some time ago that the Wall Street Journal and the National Opinion Research Center did. And they found that over a 25-year period, from 1998 to present, those who consider patriotism as very important fell from 70% to 38%, almost half. Those who said the same about religion fell from 68% to 39%, that religion is not as important. The importance of having children dropped from 59 to 30%. The value of community dropped from 47% to 27%. So in these key areas, Bob, patriotism, religion, children, community, almost a 50% drop across the board of the value we as American citizens have placed on these things. So Robert George came up with this idea of we need to have Fidelity Month, not Pride Month, not where you're celebrating self-centeredness and your
Right.
whatever else is going on. But we should celebrate God, family, our spouses, and our communities. These are four things that we should value and treasure. We're blessed, first of all, as Americans. We are given incredible freedom, incredible liberty, incredible opportunity. And for a while, Bob, that seemed like the constant drumbeat was to run down America. Let's focus on all the bad things we've done, all the warts and blemishes in our history. And we have had our issues. We have had some real shortcomings and failures. But when you continue to beat down the United States and just dwell on the negative, it's going to have an effect like this that we saw in this Wall Street Journal National Opinion Survey, that people are going to say, yeah, patriotism isn't that important. In fact, we don't even like America. This same America that has made mistakes has also rectified those mistakes because of the system of government we have and because of the First Amendment freedoms, freedom of speech and religion and to assemble, freedom of the press. My goodness, that is worth celebrating. And then religion, God is the author of our rights and our liberties. Our country makes no sense without God. And we've acknowledged him in a public way. So fidelity to country, fidelity to God. And then fidelity to family, to our spouses, this idea of faithfulness between the spouses. And these spouses bring children into the world, and children should be celebrated. Let's talk about that. So Fidelity Month, Bob, and then community. That was the other thing. We should celebrate community. We live in communities, we have neighbors, we have family. We should celebrate community. These are things worth elevating, worth talking about, worth celebrating, and that's what Robert George has done with Fidelity Month. By the way, one of CPC staff members, Jacob Ogan, wrote a column on Fidelity Month. It's in Kentucky Today. It's also in the National Review online journal, and you can find his perspective there. You can go to our website as well, commonwealthpolicycenter.org, and find it there as well. So Bob, this is a great development. This is worth celebrating. By the way, Commonwealth Policy Center has put together a model resolution for local governments to celebrate Fidelity Month. It's just a resolution acknowledging that, hey, God, country, family, community, these are things worth celebrating. And you can find that on our website as well. Go to commonwealthpolicycenter.org and you can find that resource on Fidelity Month there.
You know, and tying in with this, the Colson Center has launched the Identity Project. What is that all about?
I'm sorry, Bob. So the Identity Project is another one of those positive developments. I've got people buzzing in here as we're talking, so I was slightly distracted. But with the Identity Project, another bit of good news.
Yes.
Where the Colson Center, nationally known organization, Chuck Colson founded it. John Stonestreet is the current director. And the Identity Project talks about this crisis of identity today. Especially our young people, they're struggling with identity, even at a very basic level. What is my gender? And they're told, our young people today are told that they can transcend their identity. That even if you're born a biological female, you don't have to be stuck in that. If you have strong feelings and believe that you're a boy trapped in a girl's body, that you can transcend that. Well, what a bunch of hogwash. We've been told to believe the science when it comes to global warming or climate change. How about if we believe the science when it comes to biological reality? And the basic fundamental truth is that if you have XX chromosomes, you are female. If you have XY chromosomes, you are male. That is a reality that gets down to the very cell level of your being. And this is something that you cannot do a simple external makeover, take hormones or do some kind of external surgery to give you the appearance of male or female. In fact, that's harmful.
Yeah.
This is harmful to our young people to tell them that you can actually change your gender. So the Identity Project is it's an attempt to help us think about our core identity and what John Stonestreet had said. And I was at the press conference, by the way, Friday. This was in Louisville. Hundreds were in attendance, by the way. John Stonestreet in the press conference said this: something that was unthinkable in the last 5 to 6 years has become unquestionable. And that is that you could be born into the wrong body and that society needs to reorient around this. Bob, in higher academia today, many of the professors believe this, or they're teaching it, that you might have been born in the wrong body, but we can help you with science and technology. We can help you, again, transcend your biological identity. And that's, again, wrong, harmful, and it's false. But then here's the other part of that equation, is that all of society is supposed to reorient around this reality. And you see, for example, in somebody's email signature line where people say they have their pronouns after their name: he, him, his, or whatever, right? And you don't need to have somebody's pronouns. If your name is Bob Scott, Bob, I don't need to have your pronouns there when you send an email.
Yeah, it's funny, Richard. Every time I see that, and it's getting less and less, I almost immediately, obviously, I know where they're coming from, as far as the worldview is concerned. And I don't want to say I tune them out, but it just gives me a different view of them, and I think, the Generation Z folks, the millennials, they have been attacked and challenged from the pandemic and other things that they've had to deal with, with the downright brainwashing that's happened. And what do you are seeing that, things to help them, and what's hopeful? What do you see hopeful on the horizon? I know that the Generation Z turned out in force to help, and are definitely showing more of a conservative bent now, and they actually did help President Trump become President Trump again.
Well, one reason behind that, Bob, is that young males are voting more conservatively, and young males, I think, and white males in particular, and it's actually not just that, Hispanic and Black males as well, are moving in a conservative direction, and that's because they have been singled out. But I think because of their sex, because they're males, and there's other things at work too. There's a hostility towards masculinity. But I want to add something about the Identity Project. And one of the things here, and that's males and females need to hear, from a Christian perspective, that we are called to preserve what is good and to restore what's broken in our world. And this is what John Stonestreet said. He went on to say that now more than ever, our culture needs Christians to restore a broken understanding of identity by living from their God-given identity, and the Identity Project helps them to do just that. Christianity can speak to identity in the ultimate sense, that we're made in the image of God. We also live in a broken and fallen world, and this is going to bring confusing thoughts sometimes. We have sin that we deal with and fight against, but Jesus Christ has come to restore us to our original identity. He came to restore us to right relationship with God the Father. And that's good news. And this is the message that pastors need to be preaching and that we need to proclaim from the housetops. And this is what the Identity Project is working on to achieve. They got resources, by the way, Bob. There's videos, there's a website. I believe if you just type in the Identity Project, you can find more resources that are helpful there.
Powerful words and a powerful mission. Thank you, Richard Nelson, for being our guest today. This is Bob Scott, and this is Kentucky's Voice. God bless you, and God bless the Commonwealth of Kentucky.